Good morning, listeners and viewers, and the brilliant Jalf.
Morning, Ammar.
All right, you're looking well. Have you had a facelift?
No, I was actually there were some pictures. You know when pictures pop up on your featured photographs and all of that kind of stuff. And then you
Uh,
look at them and you think, oh my God, man. You think every day you're not aging, but when you look at a photograph from a year ago, you kind of know that you're Asian, don't you?
yeah, and the Asian as well. Asian and aging. Anyway, good morning, listeners and viewers. You're listening to Ammar and
Jaff.
live on our weekly radio show right here on Spice FM.
Each week we try and bring some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world.
Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities.
We will be talking shop quite literally, not just corner shops. Whether you're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business, we can help.
We can't help, and we do help. It's yeah, it's gosh, it's wet,
Yeah,
it's
it's
wild.
just came out of the blue, didn't it? Last night, I could hear the noise of the rain, and didn't expect it to rain all night, but it did.
Uh, it, but it's rained quite heavily to the extent where it's actually lying as well. Jeff
Yeah.
is what it is. Yeah, and then Bill just shared with me a video from concert
Okay.
where it's snowing.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know all of the comments over the last couple of weeks is that, yeah, I think this is it, man. We're in the spring. We're in the spring now, aren't we, Omar?
I actually I think there's a couple of moments, but yeah, technically um we are, and it yeah, it's really interesting. I actually replied, so can I share my probably our listeners, but there was where's it gone? Yeah, it was it. Share it just so you can see it. So
So yeah, the region, the weather.
can you see that?
Um, yeah, I
Can you
can
see
see
it?
that. Pinch. Oh my God, really? Wow. And that's only what, 10 miles away, Omar?
Um, and my reply to him was, so glad I built the ark here. God was surely teasing us with a day or two of sunshine. Because it was, I was sat in a meeting yesterday morning talking to Elaine from the Entrepreneurs Forum, and sort of just going, oh my gosh, Elaine was like, oh, Ma, you get up early. I'm going, yeah, it's actually really nice to start seeing the sun, sort of six something as opposed to it being like pitch black.
Mm.
And even coming home a couple of days back, it was like whatever time it was. And it was like, it was a light. I mean, it was like, and then the sun's been out and whatever else. And then all of a sudden, it's like
Mm.
back to,
Well, I guess it's to be expected, really. It does go up and down. It'd be nice if it changed, if we entered spring and there was sureties that it's going to be weather representing the spring, but we know that's not the case. Hopefully, um, we do have. I mean, I was really. I remember last year we had really great weather. I think, Amar, we had a prolonged summer.
did we?
I think so. The summer
I
was
can't,
like it was a lot of sun last year for quite a long period of time, which was really nice.
was there? Was
That's
there?
my recollection.
Yeah, well, maybe you've just woke up on the right side of the bed this morning. That's an interesting term, isn't it? Woke up on the wrong side of the bed, right side. Yeah, I, I, I don't know. I can't. I genuinely can't remember. I tend to recall like headlines, like if you think it's rained throughout this year, just 2 weeks ago, I in the Sunday Times there was a cartoon and there was a very short article that said, if you think it's rained every single day this year, it has. And it was like sort of day 40 something of the year. So every single day this year, it had rained until like the middle of February. In fact, I remember flying out on Saturday, the 14th of February, and it the sun was sort of trying to come out, and that was the first time that it had.
Hmm.
And then there's all of this talk around climate change uh,
It's nonsense, man. It's all nonsense.
well, no, there's definitely well, I think that climate change is one thing, pollution is another. So we've definitely created pollution, uh, is what we have. That's what generates acid rain, as it's called. So that definitely is in existence. But CO2, carbon dioxide, isn't. It's a natural gas that exists. Anyway, I'm not going to do a chemistry lesson. Is the thing. Um, but yeah, the point of all of this is quite simply how the weather affects our mood, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, the ideal weather is, I don't know. I mean, for me personally, um,
Oh,
excuse me. I love the seasons, but it would be nice if the seasons were kind of at the best of that particular season, if that made sense. So if the summer was kind of a comfortable, um, temperature where it's not kind of going into the 40s, but it's somewhere in the 30s, late 20s or 30s. And if we get the snow, we get it around Christmas Day time, get a bit of snow that doesn't set, get it out of the way. That would be the ideal scenario. But I think countries that don't have seasons, like for example, the Middle Eastern countries, it's just hot all year round, and it does get a tad milder here and there, but I just don't think it's as nice.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I feel that maybe this is an incorrect memory. Because it's interesting how throughout your age, you grow and your experiences differ, right? But I feel as if years ago, the seasons were the seasons. It was like winter, it was winter and it snowed. And actually, there were examples of me being particularly young where we'd have to, we were living in a Tyneside flat type of thing, and you'd come out and the snow would be really high, and you'd try and, you'd open the door and you'd go, oh my God. And the snow was like, and obviously I was like really small then. So there'll be that element of it.
Hmm.
But I do think you used to have to dig yourself out,
Yeah,
like out of the front door type
yeah.
thing. And when spring, it felt like spring. You'd see the daffodils sort of start coming up, and it would stay, and then it would move on to sort of summer. And in the summer, it'd be hot. You'd have your ice pops. You'd be out and about, and you'd go to the park, and there'd be stuff going on. And then autumn felt like autumn. The leaves were browner. they would fall off the trees, and you'd kick them as you're walking along. Type, as in, maybe I'm making it up. I don't think I am, but
No, I think I
they're
think
my memories.
I concur. I think it was the same kind of upbringing for me. I remember just those wild, snowy, cold days in the winter and stuff. I also remember the windy days in winter where I used to go play football for the school team I'm on. It was like so freezing cold and windy. Oh, it was awful. And then everyone would be kind of, like when you put your shoulders in and you're kind of. I remember that kind of scenario
Yeah,
for many years.
yeah. So there are actual technical terms, isn't there, that are relating to there are technical terms that are related to sort of the seasons and how people feel about the season, things like that, uh, including uh, SAD, which is, I think, seasonal something disorder, is the acronym, and how it affects people mentally and physically. I must admit, it's harder to get out of bed when it's like dark and dank and things like that. Although, there are days when it doesn't really matter and I'm up anyway. Like this morning, I was up at 10 past 4. I was like, and I'd gone to bed a bit late.
Mm.
Is the thing. It's like, anyway, it is what it is. What's going on in the world then, Jaff?
Oh, I don't know how much time we've got to discuss what's happening on what's going on in the world.
Crazy, isn't it? What's happened? Tell
I mean,
me what's
Ammar,
happened.
do you recall our first show when we were kind of pleading? We were saying that, look, we want peace this year, and we want all wars to stop, and that's really what we humanity demands. And next thing you know, there's just been chaos everywhere. It's unbelievable. I mean, how long do we have? But I think if you want to try and understand the essence of what's going on in the world, you really gotta. It all comes down to one thing. This is like a big, massive religious war, and there's no one that can deny that because the American government they've come out and they've made statements to their armies that this is like a um, this is a what do you call those wars that they used to have based on religion? When they used to go down to Jerusalem and can't remember what it was called, but there's that word which is like a religious war. So they've already made that announcement about it. It's what do you call it, Ammar? Those wars that were happening, man, between like they're fighting over Jerusalem, and there was Salahuddin, and there was like um
Well,
big.
you're far, far more
What's it called? There's a
qualified.
word for it. It's oh
A
man, it's not
jihad. A
not jihad.
jihad.
No,
Uh,
it's not jihad. It's the other. But anyway, put it in context. So I listened to somebody and when you're kind of in
I
different
think that's where you're going wrong, right? I think you need to stop listening to people.
well, no, when I'm in a room of people and people are talking and I'm just observing what they're saying, and
Yeah,
they're saying, "Oh my God, aren't the Iranians? They're crazy. They're just like stopping all. They don't care. They've like blown up the
yeah, but
airport."
that's right. That's the. If you look at what and why they're doing, they're
Well, yeah, I
defending.
was just trying to, I
Yeah,
was just
as
trying
it
to,
is the thing,
and
isn't
I'm not having conversations, engaging with conversations, but then when you look at it, you got to look at it from their context. If you imagine that someone killed our queen at 86 years old, and they killed our prince,
it?
and they killed Kate and the grandkids. If you imagine that happened in our country of 60 million people, I think there would be outrage amongst everybody. Now, if you think Iran's got like 100 million people and they've killed their supreme leader, his wife, his daughter in law, and his grandkids, and of course, that whole nation is come out demanding vengeance and um, retaliation and revenge, and it's galvanized an entire country. And obviously they're coming out all guns blazing, hitting American assets in the Middle East. And sadly for the world and all of us, is that we probably got lots of friends and got big connections with Saudi and Dubai and Qatar, where I went for the World Cup not too long ago, Bahrain, Kuwait, all of those countries where there's American bases, the Iranians are hitting, and they've, along with that, the big things that are happening is there's a stretch of water which is 33 miles long, and it's called the Straits of Hormuz. And I think it's either 20 to 25% of all of the world's oil production, it comes through that particular route, and that is currently closed, meaning that I think the market is trying to hold it all together at this moment in time. I don't know if it's possible, Ammar, to get Phil on the radio show, but I think it'd be really interesting to know and understand what's happening with energy prices. And because I've heard rumors that the gas prices have doubled already and everything's just spiraling and spiraling. I think, how does it affect us when the gas is, even Qatar have said that they're stopping all production of gas. So there's no gas coming through, there's no oils coming through, coming to Europe and going around the world, and the markets are going to go haywire. I think those that are in control of the markets, they're trying to hold it together and not show dramatic change. At some point, though, I don't think they're going to be able to hold it together. It's like a balloon and it's got holes in it, and they're trying to plaster it up. But then at some point they're going to all come loose, and then if you see the true force of the market, if this continues for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think we're going to see chaos in all parts of the world, because the petrol prices are going to be, well, once they start to go mad, then if you imagine your deliveries, your suppliers, your own costs are just going to go absolutely ballistic, and that's when there's going to be pressure on all of the economies around the world.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and it already is happening. And it's interesting, right? Because um, uh, part of, sadly, the challenges. And look, I think it's a great analogy. However, whatever people's views are on this side of the world, they naturally differ to the other side of the world. I must admit, I occasionally watch France TV news, is what I do. And it's really interesting, the stark difference between how they report in France to how we report here, right? Because you wouldn't expect the difference, but the independence of view in French 24 or whatever it's called, it's really, really interesting. I mean, obviously, I tend to watch a broad range of news channels, including Al Jazeera when I can and whatever else. It's always useful to get different views.
100%.
And that's not to say I agree with them. It's just about getting different views. It's different opinions, right? But what is interesting is the geopolitical elements of this, right? And if I was to, I'll listen to, alongside obviously Spice FM, the greatest radio show and station in the world. I thought early on I'll tend to listen to Radio 4, and it was really interesting to hear some of the input and the rationale behind that input, right? So LNG, historically liquid gas supplies, Germany's incredibly dependent upon the US for the supply of LNG, right?
That's now. That's now. What? Currently. That's currently.
Yeah. Spain isn't as much, right? So having the two different, and it was really interesting. This was on Radio 4, so I'm just sharing news. These are just, this is, and Spain was actually very critical on the basis of, look, this war shouldn't be a war, right? It's another invasion type of arrangement, suggested allegedly, whatever your views. Anyway, and whereas Germany was actually sat in the White House, sort of going, oh yes, you should be doing this, and it's preventative, and we needed to do all of these things and whatever else. So it's really interesting that the energy supply, right, is such a big, significant factor. And if you look at the challenges, so global oil supply, right? So key producers in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Iran. So Iran's been, and been a huge oil producer, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Really, if you look at Venezuela, if you look at Iran, if you look at these type of places.
Well, Ammar, just
Iran,
very quickly about on that. Do you know BP? The origins of BP, what it used to stand for?
what?
Today, BP stands for British Petroleum, right? But when they set up BP, it was British Persia.
Yeah, and if you look at um, uh, American Oil, Texaco, I can't remember the other ones. They were set up as Arab oil, whatever it was, right? So it was like the Saudi deals. So like the Americans were there signing the deal with the Saudis, and it was only in the 70s or something as recent as that where Saudi oil separated to become Aramco, and Aramco was American Arabian Oil Company or whatever it was, right? It was called Aramco because of the American element of it. So it's really, anyway, look, whatever your views, and there's lots of them, we're in a sorry state of affairs. Coming into answering the question, well, actually, if you look at, the much of the oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and it's one of the most important energy choke points in the world. And because the UK buys oil at a global market prices, the cost rises here as well, right? The impact on natural gas prices is quite significant. So Qatar is the largest generator of liquefied natural gas, United States, and then Norway. And because of that, naturally, that's a big deal.
Well,
They're
no,
already
Qatar's not the biggest producer of gas in the world by a distance is Russia. Your stats is just not sharing that because
no. Sorry, I'm talking about in the Middle East.
okay, yeah,
I'm talking about the world.
okay,
I'm talking. This is all purely Middle East.
okay, yeah.
Right. So I mean, Russia has lots of oil as well. Russia has like loads of reserves, and that was one of the challenges, right? Because everyone was buying all of their energy from Russia, primarily LNG, and then had to ship it, and it's now being bought from America, right? Is what it is. So, and then the broader electricity prices are inevitably going to rise. Petrol prices are inevitably going to rise. It's the impact on people is what it is. It's like people like us, people like sat at home, just trying to heat themselves. Now, curiously, the price cap was changing. There was a 4% increase anyway being added onto the price, and that is obviously coupled with what's going on. Quite scary, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so that's the economic situation of it, and it's very very worrying because if it continues and if we get into week, this is only like what Saturday, today's Friday, tomorrow's going to be the first day where they assassinated the Ayatollah. So you're coming up to the 7th. Well, it's going to be a week tomorrow. And if we're looking 3 weeks ahead, I think it's going to be catastrophic if things are still in the same place or even escalated further. And Ammar, you go back to the points that we made, and our show is there on the 1st of January or whenever it was. We were talking about what's happened to like diplomacy, because there isn't any diplomacy. I mean, if you're gonna have all of the, I remember going to a lecture. It was Tony Benn, the former Labour MP, and he was saying that, well, look, our generation, we have put everything in place for the safety of the world in terms of international law, the UN, and everything that it stands for, all the rules, regulations, and everything's in place because of from everything that happened at World War One and World War Two. So hopefully, moving forward, the framework is there for everlasting peace, right? But a problem is that if there is a framework in place for humanity, and countries are not following it, because can you remember when there was the Iraq War and you needed to get, there was the Security Council of the United Resolution, and you got like, you needed, if any country wanted to go to war, I think one of the principles was all the countries of the Security Council, I think it was Russia, China, America, Britain, and France, all 5 countries had to agree and say that, yeah, you've got a right to go to war. And if one country objected, and I think for the Iraq war, it was France that objected. I think it was President Chirac. Is it Chirac?
Yeah, Sharon. No.
Chirac. He said no.
Oh, Jacques Chirac.
Jacques Chirac, and he said no, and then but the Americans said, "Oh, fair enough, we're still going to go anyway." So I think it was like go back 20 years. I think the weight and the actual regulatory bodies weren't able to regulate anything, and it's come to the point where today countries can go on war. Israel can go to war, and America can go to war, and they can do all sorts of things which are against international law. But everyone, it's okay though because it's America. They can go to Venezuela and just pluck out the sitting president. I mean, the UN, international law doesn't allow you to do that. So if you're not going to follow it, Ammar, there's going to be like, it's all about, I've got the biggest weapons and I'm going to go and do whatever I want. You just create a world which is full of double standards. And I think that's the essence of the problem.
Look, it's an incredibly unfair time, isn't it?
So I just think that that's not going to end well, because when people get completely kind of humiliated and degraded, and you know, you're just going to, apparently they were in negotiations, they were in the midst of negotiations, and whilst those negotiations were going on, you know, the attacks happened. And I guess, okay, so how are you going to now negotiate moving forward? Who's going to negotiate, and who's going to sit around the table as adults for the sake of humanity? It's not just for the sake of yourself or your family. You're talking about the sake of humanity is in your hands as a group of leaders and people. And are they really thinking about all of us in the way that they should? I just don't think that they are. They're just thinking about their agendas that we've got to get to this point. Interestingly, I've just remembered that word that I was looking for, right? So the word was crusades, which is like a religious battle. I think the American government have come out and they've said to their army that, yeah, this is part of a big, massive end of time crusade. And the armies have complained and they said that, well, hold on, in our constitution, religion and we're like a secular country. We're not run by religion. So why are you telling us that we're going to go into a religious war? And like, if you saw in the Oval Office, all of the evangelist Christians, they were all around Trump doing the prayers, which is fine because America always does prayers and said, God bless America and A, B, C, and D. But that was like, because, you know, give our leader the strength to deal with the up and coming war, and
but there's even like Congress and senators and whatever else who have raised concerns. It's like, I mean, look, at the end of the day, regardless of whatever your views, we need peace and harmony, and this isn't going to provide either of those things. What was really interesting was the fact that, and there's wars going on all over now, right? Jalf is what there is, and it's a quite a scary space and place. But um, one of the things I believe allegedly was Israel had allegedly suggested Pakistan was next,
Uh-huh.
and and then it was inadvertently, oh no, we didn't mean that, and whatever else. So Pakistan put everyone and everything on high alert, and then Pakistan, you know, have their relationship with sort of China, Turkey, Russia is quite significant, and you can see the balances of this, right? But I mean, gosh, if that would be like a full-on nuclear war, wouldn't it?
Well, I think I personally, in my view, we're already in World War Three. They're just kind of
It's just your view. So sorry, just very briefly. So yeah, I don't think. Well, I mentioned this briefly, but Fiona Hill had actually sat and acknowledged that we are in World War Three. It's just a different type of war, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I guess when did World War One and World War Two begin? It begins with probably it's in someone's mind to begin with. They can't share it with everybody, and then obviously events get bigger and bigger, and then you think, oh my God, this is actually impacting everybody. I mean, this war in that's happening currently in the Middle East. I mean, look, if you think about it logically, if the Americans turn around and they like smash up all of the um all of the weapon bases of the Iranians and everything they've got in the sea. And then they say that, oh, well, hold on, we're taking over the Straits of Hormuz ourselves.
Hmm.
That's possible. But I don't think that the Chinese would allow that because 80% of their oils they come from Iran to begin with, and I don't think the Russians would allow that because they want to have that big control and that's their ally. So what happens in that instance? Once the front changes and it goes west against Russia and China and Iran and North Korea and maybe it's Pakistan and those are the biggest significant countries. And then you got the West along with America, you got Israel, and that's the kind of dividing line of the two sides of this world war. And I think when the big boys get involved in the big weapons, they start to use the big weapons when one is if you're on the back foot and you're about to there's what you're there's like a strategic defeat ahead. What are you gonna do? You're gonna just get your nukes out, aren't you?
Well, it's incredibly scary and sad, though, isn't
And
it?
and yeah, and I think that's the reality of it. I think the media is doing a good job by not scaring the public, but I think that you can see it if you just do a basic analysis. You can see what is going on. But the interesting thing was, big commentators like Tucker Carlson and others, they're just all saying that, yeah, everyone, it's all about Jesus, Ammar. Have you not heard it? I mean, Trump's saying it. So many commentators are
It's
saying,
all about Jesus.
well, yeah, this is the everyone wants to. So the evangelist Christians, who I think Trump is one of them, and he's like saying that they're trying to bring the Messiah to return really, really quickly. So they want this war to be big, and that's that final war that's written in the Bible about the return of Jesus to save humanity. And humanity is in a really, really dark place, and Jesus returns. And and then on the other hand, the Israelis are saying that, yeah, it's in the Bible that this land is given to us in the Bible from the river to the sea, and that includes Saudi Arabia, it includes Iraq, it includes all of those countries, and they are kind of battling for that, but they're also waiting for their Messiah to come because they feel that their Messiah hasn't arrived, and the conditions are so this is very, very religious. And then the Iranians, they burnt something that really, really they had big demonstrations a few weeks ago, and there's this like satanic figure called the Baal, Baal, and they in their streets they were burning this big massive figure, saying that that's who they're fighting. So it's like all of these religious viewpoints all across the world. Hence, Americans coming out and saying that this is a crusade, which is just unbelievable, isn't it? That secular countries have all of a sudden having religious wars.
Yeah, I don't know is the honest answer. I mean, I haven't, or I haven't heard that word, but
Well, listen to Tucker Carlson. He's one of the biggest commentators in America. He is the Tucker Carlson is just very, very well regarded.
well done.
So that's where we are. So hopefully let's park that to one side, and that's what's
let's go through the actual show business slides and see what's going on in the world. Yeah. So very warm welcome. Yeah, it's sad, it's scary, it is trying to be flippant. It is what it is, but it's not ideal. So this week's headlines: Bank of England rate cuts at risk in 2026 as Middle East conflict sparks inflation fears. So expectations of further Bank of England have fallen shortly after escalating conflict in the Middle East pushed energy prices and government bond yields higher, raising fears of a new inflation shock. Markets had previously priced in an 86% chance of a 0.25 percentage point rate cut in March, but this is now dropped to below 5%, with less than a 50% chance of a cut in April. This is all based to do with the oil prices have surged and age of statistics around that. UK shop price inflation slows to 1.1%. So here's a contradictory story which talks about shop price inflation in the UK slowed based on data from the British Retail Consortium. And then complaints about HMRC surge to 5-year high as redress payments rise. What do you think about that, Jeff?
What's that? What's the redress, Ammar?
So, as in, they are just on a mission, aren't they? So, complaints against HMRC customs have reached the highest level in 5 years, highlighting growing frustration with service delays and errors. Data obtained under the Freedom of Information Act shows HMRC received 93,589 complaints in the 24-25 tax year, up from 78 in the previous year, a nigh on 20% increase. The number of cases where compensation was paid, 35% to 15,000. And it goes on. I mean, look, HMRC, it feels as if there is definitely, they're on more of a mission to recover money. And we have first-hand cases and examples of businesses that both SME and ABC are supporting and promoting that people are struggling more and more and more and more, and taxes are going up. The way that tax is being covered is going up. You know, there's absolute examples of if you miss a payment, well, any payment to HMRC, they will pass on that immediately to debt collectors. You know, which you're now on get an automatic response to that case. So it's a bit sad, it's a bit scary, and there's a perfect storm, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, they keep on changing the rules as well, and they keep on taking away the liability from themselves onto the individual business. And I think, if you think about the sick pay one is a good example where my understanding of employers' national insurance payments and employees' national insurance payments, it's an insurance that you're paying to cover yourself against sickness and A, B, C, and D, so that when you are sick, you're getting paid. So that the insurer should be HMRC, which it used to always be. So if you had when you have your monthly PAYE bill, if you paid someone that's been on the sick, that would automatically be minused off your final bill. they've just changed that where the liability is on the business to pay. So what's the purpose of the insurance then? I'm not sure. And who's there to ask that question on our behalf and fight for us? Is there anybody there? I don't think there is.
I think, yeah, and it's, well, we're trying to, aren't we? So
Well,
I
Ammar,
met
but
with the government.
is that law change even legal?
Yeah, well, it is, isn't it? It's the
How is
law.
it though? What's your, so if you imagine you've got your car insurance,
I'm not a lawyer.
but if you've insured your car and then you go and say that I've had a crash and I need to go on the insurance to get my car fixed, and the insurance company says, actually, no, mate, you're not covered. You got to pay yourself. You got to pay yourself.
But does that not happen anyway?
No, I think there's still a bit of. Yeah, we still got a bit of.
I think there's always a risk of that. Anyway, I don't know is the honest answer, so I don't have a comment on that. Having said all of that, it's a very interesting time. And actually, I went down to meet the government Wednesday in Darlington at the Darlington Economic Centre campus and met one of the directors, the deputy directors, Department for Business and Trade, and various other. There was a few other businesses represented, quite significant ones, and we had a very interesting conversation where they recognise some of the issues and challenges that exist. So they're doing engagement activities. Hopefully that will lead on to something. And that was my point to them. I said, this is great. Glad to be sat around here. But if I'm giving feedback and I'm engaging, what next? Like, what are you going to do about it? And they're like, yeah, it's a good question. We let you know. So there's engagement going on. Let's see. I think I'm hoping that the feedback turns into some level of action and activity. Very topical point, the business topic of the week, Jalf, given our conversation. So there are things that businesses can and should be doing when it comes to how to avoid hidden costs that quietly drain SME profits in 2026. So many SMEs treat energy as a fixed overhead, but unclear contracts, billing errors, and inefficient management can quietly drain profits. In 2026, tightening control of energy is a practical way to protect cash flow and reduce risk. So key steps include avoid automatic renewals. Rollover contracts often mean higher default rates. Review end dates early and tender competitively. Check metering is fit for purpose. Faulty or outdated meters can lead to estimated billing and incorrect charges. Validate every bill. Errors in readings, standing charges, and contract rates are more common than expected. Monitor usage consistently. Ongoing oversight helps spot waste and align supply to actual demand. Reduce fragmented responsibility. A single accountable point of contact avoids confusion and saves management time. So how can the SME Centre of Excellence help? So Phil and the team that we work with, it provides a fully managed end-to-end energy solution for SMEs, including access to 20 plus suppliers, competitive tendering, transparent contract structures, bill validation, and ongoing supply oversight. Phil acts independently, representing your interests rather than the suppliers, giving you clarity and control in a complex market. If you want to reduce hidden costs and protect profit in 2026, speak to Phil to review your contract energy setup and explore a more structured approach. And it's also the same with insurance and things like that. People get locked into sort of the same contracts and, oh, well, it's easier just to renew and, you know, automatically do it. And you don't realize how much money you can save and actually how much you're potentially wasting, Jeff, as well.
I think I can definitely bet for Phil because I've used Phil for a number of years. And in terms of energy people. He is. Hello, mate. You all right? No, no, it's not ours. Yeah, he is. He is one of the best, and I think he goes out genuinely finds the best, most competitive quotation out there, and even the fee that they make is absolutely minimal because everyone's got a business. They should make a few quid for themselves, but it's absolutely minimal. Whereas in the
Oh,
past,
compared to others,
oh
compared,
man,
at
I mean,
the end of
Ammar,
the
the way
day,
that the monies that they are, it was so hawkish, that whole industry.
oh,
I
it
think it still
wasn't
is,
good at
Ammar.
all.
It still is, and it was a blessing to meet Phil because he's like he's got a full understanding of how that sector works, but he doesn't. He's never acted in the way that most of the other people I've met over the years have acted, where they're just so desperate for you to do that deal with them because they're just counting how much, you know, fees that they're going to be making for themselves, and that was just so evident. Whereas with Phil, it's never been in that way. So I think I highly recommend, especially in this climate, you want to find a trusted person. 100%, Phil is the man for that.
Yeah, he is, and it is about trust, right? And it is about recognizing and appreciating, um, you know, sort of the fact that there are genuine people out there. It is an incredibly challenging sector and marketplace that was exploited by lots of people, and we ourselves also experienced, people quite simply ripping us off. Um, and it's one of those things when you look at, it's actually with our businesses, we've gone for a higher standing rate charge than what we'd been advised elsewhere to fix in lower unit charge, which was like when I looked at it on the face of it, I was like, oh, this is like really expensive. But actually, in reality, it turns out to be not as expensive. So getting that advice rather than just going, oh, like someone else would have sold me something else, uh, is really important. And equally, from an insurance perspective, making sure that you're regularly reviewing insurance products and services. I mean, sadly, um, these world events, because you can imagine how much insurers are going to pay out, or not, as the case may be.
Yeah,
As in,
but
is it not force
well,
majeure?
Amal, insurance. You remember? What I think it was Christine, one of your colleagues, that was explaining to us about the history of insurance and where it began. It began on the high seas, didn't it? When you're transporting goods and you wanted that to be insured if there's anything that happened. So the insurance companies that have got these millions and millions of pounds worth of tanks of energy, imagine that how much their insurance is going to go up by because of the risk of going through those waters. And that's still the same company that's going to give us quotations.
Yeah.
So if they look at their profit and loss and their insurance goes up in the high seas, but they have to still pass that on to all of us because they need to, whilst we might not have done anything wrong, but their rates are going to all go up as well.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. And some of the things that are coming out, I think the most critical thing here is, you know, look, look after yourself, look after those around you, pray for peace and encourage peace everywhere, wherever um, there is conflict and challenges. All of a sudden, we seem to have forgotten hundreds of millions of people displaced everywhere, people starving. And a lot of this is just man-made, isn't it? That's what's really sad.
100% it is, and it's a very small group of people who have got their own agendas, and unfortunately, they don't have us in their thoughts. And we, as a community of people, just the laymen, just the standard population, we're the ones that are going to suffer the most without any saying what's going to happen. So, as you said, Ammar, I think it's critical that we all stay together as communities, as people, and this shouldn't let us, whatever the agendas on, whatever the makeup is of the people behind each side, we need to still continue to be good human beings and look after the needs of ourselves, our neighbors, our communities, because if we can have that spirit in these times, then we can get through it.
Oh, without a doubt. We had our curry club last night, which was an iftar special, and it was wonderful to listen to Brother Ammar talk about the relevance and the benefit and the positivity of fasting. Jalf, how are you feeling? What's the value to you? What's the benefits?
Um, well, spiritually, you have that discipline, which is really important because you have to get up for suhoor, which is, you know, fasting is between sunrise and sunset. So you would get up about an hour before sunrise and have a quick bite to eat. And then you break your fast at sunset. It's a very short stint this year. It's only around about 12 hours. I think number one, discipline, that mental strength that you need to get yourself out of bed and discipline in the fast that you do. It's disciplined in so many other ways because you have to force the best character of yourself and live that way for that whole period. And that's not easy. Refrain from swearing and things like that, and so I think keep your eyes glazed and a lot of things that you wouldn't think much about. So I think that discipline is really important. And then Ammar, the benefits of fasting is that the bad enzymes in your body, it's getting kind of eaten up by your body itself, because it's giving your mechanics of your body a rest. The intestines, the stomach, everything's just resting, and it heals. If there's any inflammation in the body, it's a perfect opportunity for all of those to settle. So I think you feel more energized. You feel 100% mentally stronger. There's the physical benefits. You lose weight. I always lose weight, and my diet is just brilliant in fasting because obviously you can't eat, and when you do eat, you don't eat like a pig. You just eat a little, and I think your stomach shrinks somehow because little food fills you up.
Yeah.
But imagine you're eating a roast leg, you're eating a full leg of lamb every single day, right? I mean, imagine how big your stomach is. That stomach needs feeding as a constant, whereas if you don't, it does contract. I feel it contracts.
Oh, yeah, I think you're absolutely right that it does, and actually it's proven, right? Whatever your views of religion and various other considerations, the top and bottom and the facts are quite simply that fasting helps. Anyway, we've come up to the end of our show, and that's why people intermittently fast as well. You've been listening to Ammar and
Jalf.
live on our weekly radio show. We'll be back next week with all your views, news, and one or two clues. There's the Holy Festival down at the Baltic. Gem Arts organised that. It's a great event. I would encourage everybody to go along and view that. Hopefully the weather will turn around. Then there's some good football matches as well that we didn't get the chance to talk about. Hopefully we'll win tomorrow and on Tuesday as well. We'll be back next week. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Yeah, and we've still got a few seconds. I think it's what we have. It's ticking down. I need to get the timing, but I've set up a studio
on the hour.